Thanks for having me. Congratulations for this effort that you're going through. I'm going to talk about how we as a Dallas community came together and built this park and really created a major change in the city of Dallas. It's really the title of my speech is 5 To-Dos to Turn an Idea into Reality, or how 5.4 acres of air changed Dallas, and that's kind of what happened. You've asked about it. Rahm Emanuel called me and said, how do we do this? Atlanta's done it. So there's a trend happening across the nation, and it can be done. I will be your reporter today. I don't have firsthand information of everything I'm going to be saying, but I am proud of what this city did and change how people thought about downtown. I'll give you it's a complicated story, but I'll try to simplify it for you. And then I'm going to make sure that you have time for Q&A later with a panel discussion. Look, it accomplished everything we dreamed. As you can see here, it's a beautiful place, and it's changed how we approach parks and our people. It accomplished everything we dreamed. But I will tell you, lesson one in this thing is to think long term. My role, for instance, was just cutting the ribbon and getting the pats on the back and making sure we supported the operations going forward, and we have. I realize being a mayor elected official is a relay race and a marathon effort. We had 3 mayors deal with this: Mayor Miller, Mayor Leppert, and myself, and every one of them had a little different point of view on things. But the great news is we got it across the finish line. Now, you really have to go back to our godfather of mayors, Eric Johnson, which was in the 60s, and he was the mayor after the Kennedy assassination and did some remarkable things in Dallas. One of them, for instance, was he worked with Fort Worth to create DFW Airport, which really transformed North Texas. But he got a phone call one day from the highway department, or TxDOT, or whatever they called it back then, and said, we're going to build a highway, a connector from 75, which goes straight north, to 35, which went northwest towards the airport. And everybody didn't have to go around downtown. He said, okay, you can do that, but I don't want a big highway dividing everything. I want it depressed versus elevated. And they said, well, you don't get that choice, and it's going to be elevated. And then the story goes, he realized the Dallas water utilities reported to him, and he just told them that they wouldn't be having water for this project if it was going to be elevated. And so they compromised, depressed it, and we were able to really kind of take it to the next level. If I can, let me give you the next slide here. There we go. Okay. And that's what we had. So a kind of a depressed highway between downtown and what has become uptown. So it was a terrible way to be downtown. You couldn't walk. It really kind of locked in a lot of properties, and you couldn't sell properties next to a highway like that. So it was very, very difficult. Now, in the 1990s, I think people started to realize that our city was not growing the way it wanted to in the core part of the town. It was really kind of a depressed area, and people started taking it very, very seriously. A lot of agitation, a lot of soul searching. But finally, in 2001, people got serious about the idea, and it took over 10 years to build. And the result is pretty remarkable. As I said, 5.4 acres of greenery, a wonderful place for families, parties, street vendors, and the like. And there's a kids pool, not a kids park that you'll hear Dan probably speak about. I got a new granddaughter, so my wife and I took her down there just recently, about 5 months ago, and had a great time. And it really accomplished what everybody wanted to accomplish, but you had to kind of think about it long term. Now, learning number 2, okay, is it's all about people, okay? You can have an idea, but if you don't have a respected champion and a strong organizational, an operational organization behind that champion, it's not going to work. It's not just the idea. People sell these ideas. We had that strong operational organization with what we call TREC, the Real Estate Council. That's the name of it. It's an organization that started in 1990, and Dallas has always been a kind of a real estate city. So there were 1,400 members, and they raised a lot of money for a lot of events since 1990, and they were a force to be reckoned with. Fortunately, the director, a lady by the name of Linda Owen, thought this was a great idea. And in fact, she left the Real Estate Council and became the director of the Park Foundation. So she was able to stay with it long term. The TREC also provided, this is all about money, secondarily, after the people, and they were able to start to provide the seed capital. They donated $1.5 million, and they did an RFP on the best ways to improve our city. And there were about 4 or 5 big ideas that came out, and the Deck Park won it out. And a guy by the name of John Zog with Crescent Real Estate put a committee together, won that RFP, and started planning for this effort. Fortunately, Jody Grant, a banker in town, saw this idea and said, this is a big idea. He called John and wrote a check for $1 million and said, I'm all in. And they put Jody up front because they knew Jody could make things happen. And I think it's really important because as a fundraiser, what I've realized is that people don't give to an idea. People give to other people. And so when you have a good person asking for that money, those people trust that person. So having a champion and a strong organization behind it, I think, is critical. And now you start to get that seed capital, and it starts to take place in that manner. So that's learning number 2. You need a champion and a backbone organization. Learning number 3, to raise money, you really have to solve people's problems. Someone told me this about 15 years ago, that's what we are in life. We're just about solving other people's problems. And if we solve enough people's problems, we can get rich and famous, okay? And that's what Warren Buffett did, okay? But that's what happens when you work with people. You're trying to solve their problems. And we needed about $120 million to complete it. 115 to 120, depending on how you categorize all the money. And so we had to solve a lot of problems to be able to get that money. And I think the first problem we solved was really the vision problem, something that Dallas didn't have. And that was a place where all the citizens could come and congregate and be together and feel like they were all part of a city in a small area. So having the vision kicked off this notion of solving all these problems. So anyway, $120 million is not easy to get back then. We kind of divided it up. The initial thinking was a third would be private, a third would be local and state, a third would be federal. But people didn't know how it was going to all fall out. It changed a little bit, but you've got to make sure that everybody throws in. Now, the problem that we solved for real estate owners is they wanted a project that would increase property values. Pure and simple, mercenary. I want to build buildings and make some money. And they didn't have a project like that, but suddenly they did, and they could see the visions of this, and trust me, they've made a fair amount of money through this. Now, the City Hall wanted a vision that would help downtown. The Mayor Miller had created a project called Inside the Loop, and she was approaching this with kind of an emerald necklace sort of approach. And this idea kind of came after she had started that project, but it fit in nicely to that notion that we're going to green up downtown. And over the last 20 years, we really have. So we were able to check a box off of the city. TxDOT, their job is to fund projects that are going to improve the lives of cities, and transportation does that. So this fit nicely into that, and I feel that TxDOT is much more around how transportation is done now versus just building highways, and I think they're approaching that in a good way. Feds came in last. This is during the recession, 2009, and President Obama had created the ARRA funding, and they wanted a shovel-ready project that had a lot of jobs compared to it. Boy, were we first in line. This was a shovel-ready project that if they spent their money, they could get tremendous return, and it created a lot of jobs, not only in the project, but a lot of jobs around it. So when you raise money, say, what do they need? What's keeping them up at night? What are their headaches are, and how do we make sure we sell that? That's learning number 3. Learning number 4, think big, okay? Expect bigger results than you thought, and take on the tough, big issues now. No one likes conflict. Everybody wants to be happy, but when you make big things happen, they're not. And don't shy away from that. Make sure you approach those things with a positive spirit, but deal with the big issues, because if you just throw them under the rug, it's going to take a while for those things to get resolved. No one expected the results that we got, okay? As you can see, there's 1.5 million people a year that come to this park. It's a true destination for a city that really didn't have a destination, okay? I mean, Dallas was always seen as a great place to live, but not a great place to visit, okay? And because of that, because of other destinations we've created, it is starting to be a destination city in the southern part of the United States. And what it really did is that, remember that park where the highway divided downtown and uptown. So it was like, are you an uptown person or are you a downtown person? Now it unites it for one big city center. It was really 1 + 1 = 3, and it helped both sides of the highway. The city never thought it was going to get the returns that it had. It spent $20 million in bond money, okay? The incremental tax revenue is $180 million a year, okay? $6.5 billion in economic development. Let me say that again for people that like math. $20 million in bond money, incremental tax revenues of $180 million a year, $6.5 billion in economic impact. I'm not a genius, but that pays out pretty quickly. I know that. You got to think about thinking big. You better think about the operational budget, okay? don't be building something and act like you're going to be chintzy about how to run this thing, because people want to come. People want to be happy. One of the big issues, you see all these people sitting on this lawn that we've got, is the grass wears out too fast. We have to put new grass in every year. And I don't think people thought about that. If you're going to put a fountain in, the fountains came later for us. Make sure you put water, pipe that place for those fountains later. Make sure you put in anchors for tents for outdoor events. Think about a lot of tents being up, because people want that, especially in the heat. They want to be out from under the sun. And the big one for us was closing streets. Remember, that was the way you got out of downtown, were several streets, and we had to close some of those things. And Harwood was very hard to close. A lot of people pushed back on that. And we got through it, and it was the right thing to do. Part of the thing is to convince neighbors to change at the same time. This is an opportunity for our arts district to change. Right now, some years later, the DMA, our Museum of Fine Arts, is actually going to change the way it faces the park. And getting organizations to make this a renaissance for the whole area, I think, is very important. And then plan for expansion. Where's the expansion going to go? You talked about staging it. We've started a new stage on this, and it's we're going to build a building that you can have indoor events. We've got office space there, I think, for the Visit Dallas area, and a lot of places where people can go inside. So that's going to be part of this. But planning for that, I think, is important. So learning for is think big, expect big results, take on the big issues that face. And then fifth, expect bad things to happen, okay? And then learn to pivot with those bad things through real partnership with people and how you do that. I'm a mayor, so I can't say what it really said, but stuff happens, as the old saying goes, okay? So just plan on it. It's going to happen. In our city, Mayor Miller promised a TIF to fund this. Once it all started to happen, the TIF did not happen, okay? It really was a shot in the gut for a lot of people. But because of that, she was able to compromise with bond money. In the long run, the bond money is what we needed, because it had a lot more dollars, and it didn't last for a long time. We had to go get a PID, but that bond money was able to jumpstart the PID, and it was a much better way to do that. We had to kind of pivot on that. And the real estate market, okay, these are real estate guys. And if you remember what happened in 2008 and 2009, the real estate market crashed, and so many people went out of business and went bankrupt. And it was everybody goes, oh my God, what are we going to do with this project? We're right in the middle of it. We decided, we need to sell this as a way to solve the real estate market. And that's how we were able to get the Obama ARRA money because of that. So we took something, you make the lemonade out of the lemon, if you will. And then to realize that the reason you can do that is that you are partners through this whole project. You've got to be partners with nonprofits. And let me just say the word partners. Everybody says this. When you've got a real partner or when you don't, okay? Make sure it's real partnership, okay, with the philanthropic community, with elected officials, with TxDOT, with the feds. And you know where you create the real partnerships is at the staff level. If the staff gets along and everybody likes everybody, it's amazing what happens, okay? Because Nobody cares about getting famous or being performative. They just make things happen. So that spirit of partnership gets you through those difficult times. So that's really the last learning of it. But we learned it so well that we're doing it again. Okay, we have created, and this is something that I started. We created another deck park, which is now being called the Halperin Park. The givers gave us the money for it, in southern Dallas. So this is the southern gateway coming into Dallas. So if you came into Dallas from Austin or Waco, you would go through I-35 up to Dallas. And this was a terrible highway situation because it divided North Oak Cliff and East Oak Cliff. And this is were depressed environments, and people really did not feel like there was a community. And so because we've done this so well, we decided to do it again. And this is the current status of Halperin Park, and it'll open up, I think, next year someplace. In fact, there's going to be a phase 2 on it as well. And this is right near the zoo, so it's combining off the zoo, and it's remarkable. I will say that this is hard work, okay, and it gets depressing at times. But I had a wonderful moment. We also built some wonderful bridges over the Trinity. Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge that was designed by Santiago Calatrava, the famous architect. And I got to have dinner with Santiago one night, and he's from I don't think he's from Barcelona, he's from Valencia. And I was talking about all the great European cities, like I was a big hotshot and been all these places and stuff. And he said, and I said, man, I wish I lived in a city like that. And he said, shame on you, okay? They're boring and dead cities because they don't do anything. What you're doing now is so much more fun. You're creating something that's going to be around for 200 years. And that changed my whole perspective that we are living the best times right now. We're the ones that can do exciting things. And our grandkids are going to look back on us and say, they did those things. Because you know what? Ultimately, that's what it's all about. It's about people. We can talk about money. We can talk about engineering. We can talk about programming. But it's all about our kids and the future of those generations and our neighborhoods. And that's how we make our city, our state, and our country better. Just one block at a time, one project at a time. And we hope that you're tremendously successful in your endeavor. Thank you so much.